I just realized I'm on mute. Hello, everyone. Can you please let me know if you can see me and hear me? If you can just quickly write in a chat or in a Q&A box in the middle of your screen, if everything is okay. Anyone can just please confirm. Yes, awesome. I was on mute for the first minute or so. We're just gonna give it a few more seconds. Hello, everyone. Hi. Hello. Chat is disabled. Yeah, it is disabled. There's this Q&A function, which is basically chat, so we can use that one. So nice to see you all. Hello. Hi. So excited to be here with you all on Monday. I intentionally chose Monday so that we have enough time to apply the learnings we're going to learn today. Hope you're all doing amazing. I'm great. We have some nice, sunny and warm-ish weather here in Iceland. How are you doing? Want to let me know, how has your day been so far? All right, we have quite of an international attendees today. We have people from all the west coast of the USA all the way to Singapore. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna let everyone know about that. Sophia is writing. So for those of you who have not been in a Zoom webinar before, you might notice this is a bit of a different Zoom. So it's not the typical Zoom call. It's a Zoom webinar, meaning that nobody can see you apart from me. I'm the only person who can see that you're here today. So if you are worried if any of your colleagues might see you or your boss, nobody sees you. I'm the only one. So that's the first thing. And then secondly, you will notice that in the middle of your screen, there is a Q&A box. So if you press that box, you can send a comment. You can write a comment, ask a question. You can also select for everyone to see that comment. You need to do it for everyone to see that comment, or do you want only me to see the comment, right? So it's whatever you feel comfortable with. If you've been in my webinars before, you know that I like to see them, or I like to have them engaging, right? So please feel free to write your 12 a.m. in Singapore now. Herek, so nice to see you. Thank you for being here with us so late or so early, however we want to see it, right? So as I said, I encourage you to engage, to write your comments, write your questions. I'm going to try to address as many as possible. If I don't read your comment, it doesn't mean that I'm ignoring you. It just means that I haven't seen it. So please make sure to write it down. So Sophia, you cannot see any other comments. All right. I don't know why you cannot see under. Just 1 second. Answer question. I think that you need to, so every attendee, you need to allow others to see your comment. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be reading comments, so let's not spend time on that. So welcome to all of you who are here. There will be another couple of people joining so far. Again, so happy to see you, especially if you're new here as well. Welcome. There are a lot of old faces. So nice to see you. So nice to see all of you who are new. Welcome. If you are totally new to my world, my name is Sandra D'Angelo. I'm a certified career coach, and I help my clients create careers they love, but like really love. I mean, we spend so much time at work. Don't we want to make it amazing for ourselves? I'm sure you do. If you're here today, you do. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about how to make decisions. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. And to be very honest with you, when I was preparing material for you today, it was pretty challenging for me to think about what I want to talk about, because there's so much to talk about. And so I was thinking, what is something that I can speak to you today about, that I can teach you today, that is going to prompt you to start taking action as soon as possible and start making those decisions. Okay, so the point is really to get from inaction and confusion into problem-solving mode and into decision-making. So this is what we're going to do today. Firstly, we're going to look into a few misconceptions when it comes to making decisions. We're going to look into different beliefs you might be having, different thoughts you might be having that are preventing you from making decisions. Now, why is that important? It's because any strategy, or better said, no strategy will ever work if your mindset isn't aligned, right? So when we are avoiding something, when we are procrastinating on something, when we aren't doing what we know we should be doing, there is some thought error we call it in the coaching world, or certain beliefs that are holding us back, and therefore we're not moving with the action that you know we should be taking. So we're going to look into those. I'm going to give you some questions that you will be able to answer for yourself to get yourself out of that overthinking mode, right? And then later on, I'm going to share a very simple, I didn't say easy, I said simple framework on how to make decisions and how I make decisions. I make a lot of decisions. I'm going to tell you about this a bit later, but I typically, or I would say most of the time, don't have any drama when it comes to decisions. I make a decision and I move into executing it. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to teach you how you can do it too. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. And then at the end of the webinar, I'm going to stay for some extra minutes for those of you who are interested in coaching, for those of you who are interested in potentially working with me, and for those of you who want to know how or what is the work that we do when it comes to making decisions in the one-on-one setting. So for those of you who want to stay, you will be very welcome to do that. As I've mentioned before, for those of you who have joined a bit later, any questions, any comments, please put them in a Q&A. I'm going to try to address as many as we go. All right? Are we ready? Let's go. Okay, so this is the first thing I want you to do. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to take a pen and a paper or your phone or whatever, or just notes on your laptop. And I want you to write what is something you have been struggling to decide upon in your career. Take a minute or 30 seconds. It doesn't have to be a fancy sentence. It doesn't have to be a fancy answer, right? It's for your eyes only, unless you want to write it in chat. So what is something that you have been struggling to decide upon in your career? Now, typically, when I coach my clients, here is what we might work on. To open or not to open their business, to leave the job and go to another either industry or company. Is it potentially also to relocate for a specific amazing job opportunity that has come your way, but you're wondering, you know, there is a lot that comes up when relocating. Whatever it is for you, what is something you've been struggling to decide upon in your career? If you're here because there is nothing specifically in career that you're struggling with, but in your life, you can write it down as well. We're going to need that answer later on. Is there anyone who wants to share their answer in the comments? If there is anyone, or if you just want to let me know if you have your answer so we can move on. Either way. I'm just looking here. Okay. I will assume that you all have your answer. Now, let's move on to what might be holding you back. Okay, so we have a certain decision that needs to be made. Now, why aren't you deciding? Why aren't you doing anything about it? Here are some of the reasons that I see to be the most common ones. What I want you to keep in mind as we go through these, think about how can this apply to you? Is it in your career? Is it in your life? Because here is the thing. If you have difficulties in making decisions in your career, odds are that you have struggles in terms of making decisions in general in your life, which is not a bad thing. It's okay. The first thing we want to do is we want to become aware of what is happening so that we can improve, so that we can upskill those areas and those skills that we need. Right? Because essentially decisions are being made all the time. Every single minute you're making a decision. You're making a decision to be here today. You're making a decision, what do you want to do with this learning that you're going to gain today? You're making a decision what you will do after the webinar takes place. You're making a decision what you're going to wear when you wake up in the morning, and so on and so on. All these decisions are creating our results eventually. So think about how can those be applied. So what might be holding you back from making your decision? One of the most common things that I hear my clients telling me, and in general individuals, is I need more time. I need more time. Have you ever said that? I think we've all been there. We're all guilty of needing more time. We think that we need more time to make a decision. We think that with time, we are going to suddenly get an enlightening moment and we're going to know exactly what we need to do. Now, the question I want you to ask yourself here is, Why do you think you need more time? Why do you think that with time it's going to be easier for you to decide? And what I want to give you as a tip here is that you don't need more time, you need more information. We make decisions based on the information, right? So instead of time, you might want to cross out the time and you might want to ask yourself, what information am I lacking that is preventing me from making a decision? Because here's what it happens. If you don't have answers to these questions, you think that you need more time, but what actually happens with time, our brains are wired in a way that more time passes, more concerns we come up with, more reasons for why we shouldn't go with something, more we start overthinking, more we start on over analyzing, and with more time we just spin in more inaction, which brings all sorts of different things which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So again, instead of I need more time, cross time, write I need more information, and ask yourself, what kind of information do I need and where do I find this information? Okay. The next thing I see is there is one, just one right decision. There's just one. That happens often. And if this is where you find yourself at the moment, thinking that there is just one decision that's going to be right and all the rest is wrong, is what else could be a potential option for you, right? Apart from just one that you're hoping to find, write down all different sorts of options that come up for you as you think about the decision you need to make. Let me just quickly read the comments. Trying to live more than one timeline at once, wanting things that are cross purposes to each other, like wanting to spend time one way, but it doesn't make money or meet my needs. If you can please elaborate on that, Sophia. I would really love if you can just quickly write what you mean by that. That would be awesome. Okay, so there is just one right decision. What if there are more? As I said, right, think about all the options that you can come up with as you think about the decision you need to make. You can refer to the decision that I ask you to write, the one that you're currently struggling with, write down all different options. Then the next one, you're waiting for external validation or approval. How does that look like, or how does it show up? You're asking everyone around you, what do they think? What do they think about what you should do? If you should go here, if you should go there, you're secretly or not so secretly waiting for them to tell you, yeah, you should do this, you should do this, this is the right thing to do. So what's actually happening there, we are basically proving that we don't trust our own judgment and we're waiting for others to tell us yes, so that we can then move on with whatever we need to decide. We don't want to be doing that. We don't want to be asking and depending on others, yes, so that we can move on, or no, really, for that matter. Right? You want to recognize if you're doing that and what are you hoping for them to tell you? What are you hoping to feel when you, even when you get their validation and approval? Getting validation and approval is very, how can I say, it's very like if you seek for it, like more you seek for it, more you will need it, if that makes sense, right? Because more you seek for others' validation, kind of typically, not always, but typically, that means that less you trust your own judgment. So unless someone confirms what you're thinking, you're going to back off, right? So really, really get aware if you're doing that and what are you hoping actually to get from these people. If you're already doing this, you also want to be aware of who is the person you're asking for external validation and approval. Are they really the right person for you to get this approval and validation for the topic you are asking them? Okay. The next thing, I'm not good in making decisions. I hear that often. Continuously convincing yourself, I'm not good in this. I'm not good in making decisions. It's very hard for me to make a decision, right? And more you convince yourself that you're bad in making decisions, guess what's happening? You're not making them. You're not proving yourself wrong. So the first step here is what can you say instead to yourself? Maybe you don't have to go from not good in making decisions to I'm amazing in making decisions, because that potentially might not feel or sound realistic to you either. But maybe a middle ground could be I'm figuring things out, or I'm learning how to be better in making decisions. Or what is the first smallest decision I can make to prove myself that I can be good in making decisions? Because making decisions is a skill, and that's a beautiful thing, right? We can all learn it, we can all improve it. just let me quickly go to comments. Okay, right. So Sophia is saying, like, working in the store from 11 to 7, which takes up the entire day, but doesn't improve my life. It doesn't make enough money. It's not fulfilling, right? It's kind of trading time. Okay. And then somebody wrote, external validation sounds also like an option to escape from the responsibility, as it's something else who made the decision at me. Yes, 100%. It is outsourcing responsibility. So why are you outsourcing responsibility? Here's the thing with responsibility, which I can make the whole training on as well, which is a big important aspect. But taking responsibility is what makes you powerful, right? Because when I am the one in charge, I'm also responsible of the result, meaning if things go bad, I can course correct, right? I am responsible for this. So instead of, let me give you an example of that. I was actually just coaching a client of mine on that earlier today. So they're in sales and they were telling me how the market is difficult. It's very difficult at the moment. It's just hard for them to get sales, all right? And one of the coaching that I gave them was market will always be difficult in this or that way. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to take responsibility for what is within our control we can do about market, right? So market is difficult. Okay, so how can you become better in promoting your value for the specific service you're selling? Or how can you be better in communicating what you can bring to those clients? Or how can you reach to other people? What other platforms can you use when it comes to sales, right? So you're taking responsibility rather than, well, it is what it is, or asking someone for an idea or approval validation, what we were talking before, to, hey, what is within my control? What can I do? How can I take responsibility for my results? And how can I course correct? Taking responsibility is scary, but it gives power. It is what creates results. Such an important thing. Thank you very much, whoever that is. I see you're anonymous, but thank you for pointing that out. Okay. It's this or that. What I mean by that is you're being very extreme. It's black or white. It's day or night. It's going all in or going nothing at all. I want you to recognize extreme way of thinking and ask yourself, how can it be potentially this and that? Or how can it be something in the middle of this and that, right? Like, point here, what I'm trying to say is you don't want to think it's just this or that and there is no other option. Again, just like with this, there is one right decision. You want to really challenge yourself to explore all different options, which is not always easy, right? But we really need to challenge our mind, challenge our brain to sit down and write all of them. And I'm going to talk about that in the framework of making decisions, because coming up with options is essentially a really important step there as well. Then the next point that I hear often is suddenly the answer or clarity will appear. You will be sitting at home on a couch and then suddenly we have clarity. I'm exaggerating a bit here, but the point here that I'm trying to make is clarity comes from taking action. Clarity, more information, more confidence, our competence, all of that comes from us taking action rather than sitting and hoping for this clarity to appear one day. Okay? Which one of these so far, there are more, but which one of these so far sounds most like you? And again, we're not doing this to criticize ourselves or to shame or to blame. None of these things. We're never doing these things. As long as you're with me in the room, we're never doing these things, okay? We're just becoming aware of these things so that we can course correct. If you want to write in Q&A, which one of those sounds the most like you so far? Okay, while you do that, I'm going to move on. There are a few more here. The next one I hear often is you've got to have it all figured out before you start taking action. This is very closely correlated with the one before that I wrote, right? Taking action brings clarity. The same is true here. You don't need to have it all figured out. You figure it out as you go. What you need to have figured out is what is the first step, how committed am I? And then slowly going one step at a time. Catastrophic thinking and not feeling clear, right? Of course, we think about all the bad things that can go, like all the things that can go wrong. And let me tell you why is that so? Because psychologically, our brains are wired to focus on the negative. They're focused to think about all the bad things that can happen. Because the main important function of our brain is to help us survive. right? So anything that's new, unknown, unclear, uncertain, our brain considers as a danger, as if you're gonna die. So obviously all these thoughts come up that are essentially preventing us from taking that action, from getting out in this danger. And this was very useful for us back in a day, long time ago, when we lived in the caves, when people were going out and fighting animals and whatever, but it's not that useful or to that degree in today's world. I have to have it all figured out. That's me. Yes, it's a huge one that prevents everyone. Like, I must tell you, like back in the day when I was opening my business, had I had this thought about I have to have it all figured out so that I can open my business, I would never have opened it. Never. Because I went into it and only then did I actually know all the things that I need to have figured out. The portion that I thought that I need to have figured out was just like 0.1% probably of actually what I needed to figure out as I was going. But I didn't think about the whole, there is this analog, right? Like the mountain. I was thinking about the first next step that I needed to take. And then the next, and the next, and the next. I'm going to talk about this in a second. The next one I hear often, it has to be easy. I love when my clients tell me this. I always tell them, no, it doesn't have to be easy. It doesn't have to be easy. Forget about that. We all have this thinking that it has to be easy, right? We have even almost like a bit of a sense of entitlement. We've got to have it easy. We all do that, again, including me as well, right? I'm a human being too. And so instead of easy, cross that out and think about it. It has to be valuable. It has to be beneficial. It's not about having it easy. Usually, easy means you're not growing, nothing interesting is happening. You're not expanding yourself. You're just staying in the same. If it's easy, you're in the wrong spot. That's kind of my way of thinking. If it's easy, I must move on. If it's too comfortable, I must move on. I mean, I must shake things up. We don't want to get sleepy, okay? It's too risky. Now, this one can be very tricky, especially also if your decision involves other people, right? Like, for example, your family, right? Your wife or husband, kids, colleagues of yours, other partners in the business. Definitely, like when it comes to this, especially when it involves other people, there is obviously communication that we want to make sure is right with whoever is involved, and that we're all on the same page, and that you go through risk factors with them together. Definitely, we want to go through all of that, but we also want to understand what specifically is too risky. You want to get very clear with yourself. You want to get specific, because when our brains are specific, then we also function in a very different way, right? So we want to focus on the fact, what specifically is too risky, and how would not having it risky look like? And what is also more risky? Is it more risky to stay in the same situation, in the same position, or potentially taking whatever decision? You might also want to pair this with extreme way of thinking. This is what usually comes up, right? It's too risky usually means, oh, it's going to be this or that. But what about somewhere in the middle? And what if it's a wrong choice? So I made a poll on LinkedIn last week where I wrote, what is the main reason why you might be struggling with making a decision? And the question or the answer that was given the most was this one, in fact, right? What if it's a wrong choice? What if a decision I make is a wrong choice? But what if it's not? What if it's the right choice? Right? The thing is, now all of these that I wrote here, all of this, I didn't write here to overwhelm you and to make you be like, oh no, but just to show you where do we spend a lot of our time. Now imagine how much time is spent in all of this thinking instead of actually doing something about whatever decision you're about to make. Think about how much time is wasted there. And especially when it comes to this, what if it's a wrong choice? Don't you think it's only fair to spend at least at the same amount of time as you're spinning in what if it's a wrong choice, to spend at least the same amount of time thinking, what if it's a right choice? Right? So I want you to make a decision. From now on here, I invite you to make a deal with me and you, and that is, whenever you catch yourself spinning in these thoughts, what if this, what if that, scenario here, scenario there, that you spend exact amount of time thinking, what can go right? And what if this is the right decision? Okay. Okay, I'm going to read some comments here. So I used to think What if it's a wrong decision? And at some point I understood that I'm just waiting for a right decision, wasting my time and doing nothing. Yeah, that was a very powerful idea, to start making decisions and mistakes to learn from them. Yes. What if there is no right or wrong decision? That's another question. This is a question that I was asked once by my coach. What if there is no right or wrong decision? What if it's just a decision you make right? Right? What if, right or wrong, what does that even mean, really? Okay. This is great, Daria. Yes, absolutely. You're sitting there wondering what if this, what if that, not making any progress, right? And one thing that I like to think about is that whatever decision, whatever mistake happens, there is always something I'm going to gain from it, no matter what. No matter what, right? There is always a powerful lesson that I can gain from whatever it happens. You can't know what you know until you know it. Okay. Yes, absolutely. That's so true, Sophia. So sometimes you have to find out what the wrong choice is to get to the right choice. Exactly. There is cost to growth. That is part of the process. Absolutely. We can never know. You don't know if it's the right or wrong choice, right? Now, here is what happens when you stay stuck in all these thoughts. And I bet this sounds very familiar. So what happens is we start overthinking and overanalyzing even more all those thoughts that come up. What if this? What if that? We are stuck in all different sorts of scenarios and reasons for why we shouldn't go with a certain decision. So we stay in inaction, as I mentioned before, or alternatively, you do take some action, little action, and then you usually typically back off at some point as well, because then you don't see the results, and then you kind of step back, right? So then inaction and little action leads to more avoidance of making that decision, which means spinning in frustration and being with what is at the moment, even if this what is at the moment sounds horrible and makes you feel bad. And then being in what is makes you think even more and overanalyze even more and avoid even more. And then maybe you take some action, but then certain doubts and worries come up. So you back off, right? So it's really spinning and spinning and spinning. And I'm going to share with you framework now. Just 1 second. Many people don't understand that not making a decision is also a decision. 100%. 100%. It is. It truly is. Right? So the question I really like to kind of ask is that what is making or not making a decision at the moment costing you? Now, one thing before we move into strategy that I want to tell you about is a thought that really helps me not spin in any indecisions. I am typically very fast decision maker, and I am I stay very strongly with my decisions. And this has really served me. So for those of you who are very new to my world, so I left my country 14 years ago. I'm originally from Croatia. I left over 14 years ago. And since then, I lived in 4 different countries. I lived in 11 different cities. When I was writing that, I was like, what? 11? 11 different cities. I initially, at the very, very beginning of my career, I was in tourism industry. Then I moved to education industry, to consulting and coaching. Then I moved from education to recruitment, to consulting and coaching. And then 5 years ago, I opened my own business, went to entrepreneurship, and I have been running my career coaching business for over 5 years now. Right? So just to give you an idea of all of these things that happened, right, require me to make a lot of decisions, a lot of big decisions, a lot of small decisions, to make decisions in countries that, I was very new to making decisions to move into other countries, right? Again, when I moved, I live in Iceland now, that's my base. So when I moved to Iceland, I moved from Switzerland, from a very comfortable life, right? I had an amazing job. I had an amazing apartment in Zurich center almost. Some of my best friends live in Zurich, they still do, and I visit them often, right? So it wasn't an easy decision. But when I made this decision, there was one thought that really, really helps me to always basically have my own back. And I want to share it with you. Maybe this thought will not resonate with you fully, but I want to share it with you. And I want to invite you to come up with your own thought, basically, that's going to make you have your own back and believe in yourself as you make these decisions. Because thinking, our way of thinking, is what creates the results in our life. The way we think and the way we believe about ourselves, about circumstances, is what makes you make decisions or not make decisions, right? And again, remember, if you're struggling with making decisions in your career, I can almost bet that you have same exact situation in other aspects of your life too. And we want to change that, don't we? Okay, so here is the thought that I'm going to share with you here. And that is, I always figure it out. Always, no matter the situation. Now, if you ask my friends, when I decided to move from Switzerland to Iceland 5 years ago, and I moved to without having seen the apartment where I live, so I trusted my boyfriend back then. He was like, "Yeah, it's an amazing apartment and so forth." So I didn't even know where I'm going to live. So just to give you an example, I don't invite you to be that extreme, maybe, right? But just to give you an example. But what I had in my mind all the time was I always figure it out. So when my friends were like, "What are you doing? Are you crazy? What? You're moving to Iceland, right?" And they would be like, "But what if it doesn't work out?" My question back to them was like, "What do you mean it doesn't work out?" I said this story a lot of times. I am aware that there are some new faces here, so I wanted to repeat it to you too, right? I was literally about like, what do you mean not figuring it out, right? For me, not figuring it out was never even an option. And here's the most beautiful thing. Why? Because I was, and again, right, 100% in charge of all the results that I create in my career and my life. And if things don't go as I want them to be, guess what? I'm just going to course correct. Okay, so I really want you to think about what is that sentence for you. So true about figuring it all out. Yes, it is. You will. You will figure it all out. And more you do it, more will you prove yourself for that to be true. Right? So after having made so many decisions in my life so far, like I love making decisions. I'm like, yeah, all right, let's do it. Move on. What is the decision we need to do? Let's move it. And I'm really not exaggerating. I really am not. This is one of the skills I'm really amazing in. So yeah, I always figure it out. Now, what happens when we make more decisions? More decisions lead to better decision making, obviously, right? More decisions we make, more we are, how can I say, training that skill, and better we become in it. More decisions means more belief. We start believing in ourselves more. We become more confident about ourselves. We prove to ourselves, hey, I can do this, right? More belief leads to more action, right? So you start making even more decisions. You start acting upon those decisions more because you believe in yourself. You have proven yourself. More action leads to, obviously, more results. More results leads to being more motivated. Keep going, right? And then, of course, more results lead to more growth in every possible aspect, right? If we talk about career, it's obviously in terms of, for example, getting promoted, getting more money, or switching to a better opportunity, and so on and so on, right? So it's like a circle. So more decision-making leads to you becoming better in it. There is no other way. There is no other way to become better in decision-making. There is no other way to be better in problem solving than to actually do it. All right? So is there anyone who would like to share? So my sentence is I always figure it out. Is there anyone, when I was saying this, that came up with some sentence that very much aligns with them along these lines? Or maybe you have a sentence that really helps you when it comes to making decisions. Do you want to share it with us until I take a sip of water? Feel free to put it in Q&A. Or if you have any questions, or if you have any comments so far, feel free to let me know. Okay, so let's look into the 3-step framework that I want to share with you in terms of how do we make decisions. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves, right? We don't want to come up with 23-step framework because nobody will ever use that. So keeping it simple. So if you look back at that decision that we say, Sophia said, I like yours. All right, take it, Sophia. Take my sentence. So if we look now back onto your sentence that I asked you to write down at the beginning of our webinar today, what is the career decision you have been struggling with at the moment? I want you to think about now how we can run it through this 3-step framework, all right? So the first step that we always need to take into consideration when we're making any decision is, what are the options? If you heard me saying before, right, when there was like this misconception that there's just one right decision, right, or right option? Typically, there is no. There are many more, or at least some more, right? So we want to really sit down and we want to identify all different options. That is your step one. How you can do this, you take a pen and a paper and you sit down and you just write everything that might come your way. And listen, I want to prepare you. What's going to happen at some point, your brain is going to be like, oh, I don't know. Now, if you're my client, and there are some of my clients on the call today, you know that one of the first deals that we make when we start working together is that we never say, I don't know. It doesn't exist. We put it out of our vocabulary. And instead of thinking, I don't know, we want to think about what could be just one option that comes to my mind. Then you ask yourself again, what could be one more option? If there could be any option in this world, what could it be? We just want to move from I don't know to what do I know, right? What can we come up? Be creative, be resourceful, allow yourself to think. It's just for you, just for your eyes, right? Then after we have identified options, what we want to do is we want to identify the reasons for each of those options, why you would be yes for those options and why you would be no for those options, right? So for example, you have your paper, let's say you write your options, right? And then you write why would you, literally you can write two tables, why you would go for this and why you wouldn't go for this specific option. And then once we have all the reasons, the third step you want to do is you want to pick the option and pick the reasons that you like the most and that align with you the most and move on to execution. That's it. That's it. So you want to identify the options, you want to identify the reasons, and then you want to pick up the combination basically that aligns with you the most. Okay, now let me go to your questions or to your comments. There is no right or wrong decision. Just move on. There is no right or wrong. Exactly. We make them right and we make them wrong, but then we correct them to right. Always look forward, not back, as per my dad, who installed all the confidence and I could do it attitude in my life from my childhood. I love that. I love that, Mirjana. My dad was the one who installed that in me too. And my mom. Beautiful. I love that. Always look forward, not back. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So back to the framework, 3 steps. What are your options? What are the reasons? And what combination of those reasons and options you like the most? And moving on. That's it. Okay. As your homework, I want you to really think about these based on the decision that you wrote at the beginning of the webinar, the one that you're struggling with. Run it through this framework. Now, an extra thing that I wrote here that you cannot see, here we go, that you can see now, is as you go, as you start executing, as you move on, we also want to be reflecting. We want to be reflecting on what's working, what's not working, and what you could do differently, what you could course correct. It's so very important, right? So for example, when I see messages like always be consistent on social media, I'm like, yes, but it's just partly true because we want to make sure that we're consistent with right activities. So we don't change our decision anymore. The decision stays the same. That's the goal. That's the decision. We just might need to adjust potentially our way of how to get to that decision. Does it make sense? Does anyone have any questions here? Please write them down. Now, here are a few things that I want you to keep in mind as we are identifying options and as we are identifying reasons. Now here, just going to write, so these are the filters. These are the filters you can use as you are thinking about your options and thinking about your reasons. First question, what are your longer term goals? Right? And how does this decision, option, reasons align with those longer term goals? Long or longer, whatever suits you better. The next filter you want to use is how do these options, how do these reasons align with your values and align with your standards? Because we never want to go against those, no matter how uncomfortable, scary, and bad it may get at times, right? We always want to stay true to our values and standards. Because here's what happens if you don't. you will eventually become unhappy, right? So we really want to make sure that we are having these in check. And if you aren't sure of your values and standards, make sure to write those down. Think about them. What are your values? What are your standards? That's such a great filter, really. And then what I mentioned already before, keeping in mind, what if there is no right or wrong? What is just, you making it be right? And if it is wrong, learning from it and then course correcting to right. How could it look like for you? Right? So for example, if I think about myself, when I now go back 4 or 5 years ago, when I was opening my business, when I relocated to Iceland, right? Was it the right decision or wrong decision back then? I could never had no. Now looking back, yes, I love that I made the decision. I wouldn't be who I am today had I not made that decision. Right? I wouldn't have my business as it is today had I not made that decision. I wouldn't have met all of you had I not met that decision. We wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be talking about these things, right? And so there's no way to know if it's right or wrong. I like to think I make my decisions right? And I always figure it out. All right. That's it for today. I'm going to go back to, if any of you wants to take a screenshot of this one. I'm also going to send you a replay, by the way. This time I am recording it. So just for you to know, you will all receive a replay. Is there anyone who has any questions? Is there anyone who has any comments? Anything you'd like to add? Please do that. Otherwise, what I'm going to do now, the webinar part, if there is no one who has any questions. So the webinar part is finished. I'm just going to stay a few more minutes to talk about how do we do this in my coaching. Okay, so Sophia said, the part that can get scary is that the old version of you may have to end for the new you to begin. And that can be paralyzing, but it's often worth it. Yes, 100%. Yeah, it is absolutely scary. Oh, yeah, it is very, very scary. And another thing that happens is when this old version of us kind of dies, under quotation marks, is that also a lot of people from that past life, again, under quotation mark, kind of go out of our lives too, right? Which can also be scary. And it's always scary. Remember what I said, right? Like the main point of your brain is to protect you, to keep you alive, right? So of course it's going to feel scary. It has to feel like, I think that more often than not, like if it doesn't feel scary, then like, wait, what's happening, right? Of course it feels uncomfortable. Of course it feels scary. The words on the flip chart are hardly visible. It might be good to choose a darker color. Yes, I know, Herrick. My, how you call them? These ones, they were dying out, but I'm gonna send you this so you will be able to zoom in, and then take it. Sorry about that. It's my bad, but I can read it once again. So number 1 is identify your options. Number 2, identify the reasons for yes or no for each of those options. And then number 3 is you want to pick the option and the reasons, the combination of those that align with you the most. If we remember the filters we talked about, the one that aligns the most with your longer term goals, the one that aligns with your values, with your standards. Okay? You're welcome. You're welcome, Herrick. Okay. All right. So now, why is this simple but not easy? Let me tell you about that part, right? Because this is the very simple framework that even if you know, right? Even if you know, it still isn't guaranteed that you are going to follow through with your decisions and that you're going to stay on track and that you're going to achieve results, right? Now, why? It's because real life happens, right? Unpredictable situations happen in our life. Then what happens is we hear an opinion from somebody else that might not really be aligned with our own thinking, right? So for example, somebody shows you that they aren't really 100% believing that you can make it. So you start doubting and worrying and making concerns about that to be potentially true, right? So then what happens is you fall off this train, you fall off out of this of this decision making and strong decision that you made, and you start going back to overthinking and overanalyzing and having your brain come up with all sorts of those reasons and misconceptions and beliefs that we covered at the very beginning of our session, right? So this is where actually the real work starts, when those happen. Because it would be beautiful and easy if this would be it. Options, reasons, let's go. But then what? Ups and downs that come our way, and I can definitely tell you that I had loads of those that came my way in the past 5 years and 14 years. And I mean, through our life, it always happens, right? But how do we stay with those no matter what our life throws at us? Daria says, I love the idea of I make my decisions right. It's so strong and decisive. Yes. Yes, it is. It truly really is. Yeah. Sophia says, the other part is you can make a decision, but getting others involved to go along with decisions. But again, you can only do that. You can only do what is within your control. Sometimes folding onto the possibility feels better than a certain no. Yes, that's true, right? So making a decision is even the easiest part of the whole story. Staying with that decision, like sticking with that decision and really seeing it through, is where the real work happens and begins. And this is the work we do in my one-on-one coaching program, right? We do this work together. We identify your next career goal. And if you don't know what next thing for you in career is, we identify together. And then based on that goal, we make decisions that are going to get you to that goal. We also course correct as we go. We also learn skills that are needed for you to get there, right? So for example, how to stay disciplined, how to say no, how to care less about what others think, how to deal with different unpredictable situations, right? You learn how to manage your mind through all ups and downs. And that is why coaching is so powerful, because it teaches you how to manage your mind so that you can work the strategy. Because as I mentioned at the very beginning, there is no way any strategy will work unless your mind is aligned with it, right? We always create results that are in line with the level of thinking. So whatever results I have in my career, whatever results you have in your career are exactly in line with what you think about your career. What do you think about yourself as a professional? What do you think about your capabilities? What do you do when it comes to making decisions, right? What do you do when it comes to problem solving? It is always on the same level. It cannot be higher or lower. It's on the same level. And that's the work we do together in my one-on-one. We work on mindset and strategy at the same time, and you learn the skill of making decisions that stays with you forever in your career, but also in other parts of your life. So for those of you who are interested, who want to learn more about working with me, feel free to email me. We will schedule a free consultation call where we're going to have a chat about where you are, where you wish to be, and we're going to see if we are the right fit to working together. And if we aren't the right fit to working together, I have a lot of amazing coaches in my network. I'm always happy to refer you to the one who might be the right one. So Mirena says, your story is somewhat similar to mine, with moving, decision-making, changes, meeting new people, looking for new opportunities. And I was born in Zagreb. Oh, Croatia. Studied and worked there before moving to Toronto. Thank you so much, Sandra. You're so welcome. Yeah, this is wonderful. Yeah. Like the last thing I want to leave you with, right, is I think one of the most important things that each of us can do for ourselves is really to work on this belief in ourselves. Believe that you've got it. Believe that I shared with you here. Where is it? Where is it? Let me find it. Yes, this one. This one. I always figure it out. Have your own back. But work on that. Because this is literally the basis for every result you will ever create in your career and life. It truly, really is. All right, everyone. If there are no more questions, I want to thank you for being here with me on a Monday. I hope this inspired you and gave you some great ideas for making some strong decisions this week. If you, again, want to have a further chat, if you want to share something with me that you potentially didn't feel comfortable sharing here today, feel free to email me. We can have a chat about that. And otherwise, I'll see you soon in the next webinar. Probably there will be one in June. I will be traveling to Zurich. So for those of you who are in Zurich, I'll see you in Zurich. But otherwise, for those of you who are online, I'll see you at some point in June. I'm not sure what the next webinar will be on. Stay tuned. And thank you once again. Thanks, Sandra. That was awesome. Always a good time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.